agree. The chair now recognizes the gentleman from Arizona, Mr. Franks, for any questions he may have.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, gentlemen, both for being here. Mr. Augustine, for your commitment to the administration. And Admiral Mees, I want you to know I was impressed by the candor of your opening statement, and I think your credit to your uniform or the one you used to wear. And I'm grateful to people like you that make it possible for all of us to sit here and have a peaceful conversation. I am convinced that our nuclear deterrent, our nuclear capability, is one of the most important elements of our entire arsenal of freedom, and yet it's important to remember that deterrent is essentially has its substance in two things, and that is the capacity that we're really here talking about today, is our ability to know that we have a reliable capability, that capacity, and also intent. Now, I apologize for asking you for diplomatic immunity. I don't know of anybody but God that could figure out the intent of this administration, okay? But the capacity here is what we're talking about today. And I'm beginning to be concerned that there is some questions about that. And I think that's extremely dangerous in the kind of world that we live in. If an enemy somehow feels like maybe our capacity or our intent is not up to par, that it may potentially drag us into something that would be very scary. So with that, Mr. Augustine, I'll turn and ask you the tough question, if I can do that. And I'm still under diplomatic immunity here, if you don't mind. Plutonium facility in New Mexico, around $1 billion spent. Nothing built, with no intention to ever to build it. The uranium facility in Tennessee, over $1.2 billion spent, with nothing built. NNSA is studying alternatives and is unlikely to build the design that has cost them $1.2 billion so far. The mixed oxide facility in South Carolina, over $3 billion spent. The concrete structure complete, but the NNSA has announced that with their FY15 budget request that it's putting the project into, quote, cold standby. The W76 LEP is delayed 2 years. The B61 LEP delayed 3 years. The IW1 LEP is delayed 5 years. And I'll try to cut this short here, but it's not really a positive situation. And the testimony here about the loss of sustained national leadership focus, I think, is spot on. And I could not agree with you more and find the administration's lack of leadership and care for this nuclear deterrence that we've been talking about. I'd call it shameful, but it's more terrifying than that. And I think those delays highlight that. This committee has been pulling its collective hair out, really, and trying to get the White House and the Office of Management and Budget to put attention on the nuclear security enterprise. And I know you folks would like to see that as well, without, putting any of my own commentary in your mouth. We passed packages of reforms out of the House the last 2 years in the NDAA, only to see the administration, quote, strongly object or even threaten to veto them. But the administration has offered no real reforms of its own, no answer to these problems. And so I guess I have to ask you, and I'll make it to both of you. Mr. Augustine, I'll let you go first if you don't mind. Has the White House engaged with your advisory panel, and do you think it understands, I shouldn't say that, does it understand the major problems that exist in the nuclear security enterprise? And do you think the President understands it, the gravity of it?
That's a difficult question,
sure is.
Mr. Franks, for us to answer. Clearly, as a nation, not just this administration, but over a period of years, we've gradually let our nuclear capability degrade. I would come back to your initial remarks that deterrence is in the eye of the beholder, as you know.
I do.
And when other nations come to the conclusion that our deterrent is not what we say it is, then we're in great danger. And one of the worst things we could do, of course, is to state we have plans that we don't provide the resources and the management capability to carry them out. If we can't afford more, then we need to change the plan. But to have plans that don't match the resources is probably the worst of all worlds. Once again, as we've visited in great detail the programs you cited. There are a lot of examples of poor management. It has less to do with, in this case, the capability of the people in the system, most of the people we talked to were very capable and very dedicated, and I might add very frustrated. They know the problems probably better than we do. It comes down to leadership at all levels. I'm trying to be as candid as I can.
I couldn't agree with you more, Mr. Augustine. I don't want to cut you short, but I'm out of time, and I wonder if we could give Admiral Meese, but I certainly appreciate your candor and your response.
Separate from the White House and Congress and national level leadership, I think there's a lot that the Department of Energy can do within itself. You spoke about several projects that we've already expended a significant amount of national treasure on, and we have yet to see a facility. A lot of that stems from a number of cultural issues and technical competence within the Department of Energy itself. There's a need for stronger cost estimating capability, a much more rigorous analysis of alternatives up front before you commit to a certain program, and also real strong, robust program management expertise. And I think those three elements, to a certain degree, are lacking within an NSA, have historically been lacking within an NSA. You don't need the White House or Congress to fix those things. I think the Secretary has the ability to take on some cultural reforms to really make the organization more efficient, to better utilize the resources that have already been given to the organization.
Gentleman's time's expired. I do want to thank the Admiral for his comment, but I would say that Secretary Moniz, who I agree is a good man and prepared for that job, has his hands tied to an extent that we, going back to Thornberry's question, we could legislate